Click, click. Hello everyone, this is Take from bigheadtaco.com, and I'm here in my studio to do I did a preview video. This is not a full review, this is kind of a mid-review of the Leica SL. And I had a fantastic time. If you want to know more about the specs and such, you watch my other video, the Leica SL preview that I did at Leo's Camera Supply, because I'm not going to go over all the specs again. As well, go to the Leica website, you can see all the specs. But sort of the main specs is Leica is selling this as a professional mirrorless digital camera. You can argue about it all you want. Those that have actually played with it, those that own Sony A7s, as well as the Leica M240s and other Leica products. I've let probably 24 people play with it. Ones that shoot professionally, the shoot are enthusiasts, and they all admit that it looks better in person and it shoots very well, not only just as a Leica camera, but even compared to Sony's and even DSLRs. There's certain things about it that make it quite cool. So I would say yes, they have a right to call this a professional mirrorless camera. Now this is a weather sealed body, and they do have matching weather sealed lenses. The 24-90 f2.8 to f4 is what I had before. It's a huge honking lens. I'm sure like the IQ on it is insanely sharp, and to the edges there's very little light fall off. However, it is huge, and so when my Leica rep said I could borrow the SL over the holidays, I told them yes, but please get me the Leica M adapter T, which allows you to put M lenses on it. And I have a couple of M lenses, including this Minolta M-Rokkor 90mm f4. So I didn't realize that he would provide for me a M lens, and I have enough friends that shoot Leica that I could have borrowed something, but he actually let me borrow the 35 Summilux, the f1.4. So I was pretty excited. I almost peed my pants, and I said, thank you, Eric, for letting me borrow this fantastic lens. So I had a great time shooting. So what I told my Leica rep was, I believe that most people that will buy this, so this is not Sony A7 current owners that are thinking, why would I pay twice the price to get something that does less, in some people's opinions. No, this is marketed mostly for people that have already bought into the Leica ecosystem, or someone who wants to get into a more, if I can use again a car analogy, into the Bentley, Rolls-Royce, McLaren level type product. It's a luxury product. It does have some performance features that are better than the Sonys and the Canons and Nikons. However, you are paying a premium for the fact that this is kind of an exotic camera. But if you match it up with this Leica M lens, and if you have M lenses, I think this is how most people that will buy the Leica SL will do. And I know for a fact already 2 photographers, one local here, that have ordered the Leica SL, and they are not, at this time, they're not ordering the lens that's being released with it, which is a 24-90, just because they don't want a lens that big. That's why they got into Leica, so that they can use more compact lenses, as well as the manual focus lenses. And as well, one of them, he is going to wait for the 50mm that's going to come out. So imagine a Leica 50mm AF lens. So I'm really looking forward to that. But we'll talk about those lenses just in a minute. So this is how I shot it over the holidays with a 35 1.4, and I will post some of the shots that I took with it, and as well the 90 lens. I wish I had something wider, like a 21, and that's kind of the beauty, and that's sort of where I've come to understand this place within the Leica ecosystem. If you're going to use the M mount lenses, when you go to lenses that start to go 24, 21mm, and as well as some of the Zeiss lenses you can get, and other third-party lenses that start going even wider, like 16mm, 18mm, 21mm, that the optical viewfinder on the M cameras, the rangefinder, you only use it for focus, and then you have to use a hot shoe viewfinder to actually frame it. And The Leica M does have the optional EVF that you could put on top, and I reviewed that on the M monochrome review. It's pretty low res. I think, if I can remember off the top of my head, I should knew this, 1.3 million pixels around there. If at all, it's like 2 million pixels. Now this has a 4.4 million pixel EVF. So again, everyone that I've allowed to use, including myself, outside in daylight, when you shoot with this, you actually forget that it's an EVF. That's how good this camera is. The only way you remember is when you're focus peaking, and as well you can see the exposure changing as you're making the adjustments, and that's something that you don't get in an optical viewfinder. So that's how good this EVF is. I'm not going to bother showing you what it looks like inside because you really have to kind of experience it when you're shooting with it. So matching with the M lenses, focus is fast. One of the things I was going to mention is these 4 buttons. Now I've heard some people talk about how confusing it is, and that's true. It's confusing if you're reviewing the camera. If you have, some reviews had the camera for like an hour and they said, camera's confusing, can't figure it out. Camera's garbage. And I was actually surprised. The guys, the camera store in Calgary, I think they had like 5 worst cameras of the year, something like that. They actually picked 2 of the cameras that I love, which is the Ricoh GR2 and the Leica SL. Now, for them, I understand they're a camera store. They have to sell the cameras. And I'm sure the Ricoh GR2 was not their best seller. It's not like when the GR first came out, that it just sold really well. So I understand their perspective of that. This camera, same thing. It takes time to learn how to shoot with it, but once you shoot with it, just like the Ricoh GR with this custom function buttons, once you set it up to the way that you like, it's actually very fast, meaning I don't even have to look and I can tell you right away that, so this has a preset for so you basically, you tap it once and this is the play, this is info, this bottom here is zooming in, and then the top one here is your main menus to get in there. Now, if you hold it down, now you can set those 4. So I have ISO up here, I have, what do I have here? I have auto white balance here, and then I have exposure compensation. And then bottom here, I have the drive modes. So I know that those 4 there, you have to memorize that. So you go into the custom settings and then you set all those things like that. So once you get used to it, it's very quick. And so for me, I don't find it confusing at all. The only thing that kind of irritated me about this camera is actually the on and off switch to the far left. Sometimes when you're shooting, especially if this camera has a nice grip, you're shooting all day, it's nice, like a lot of the Leicas and also the Fujis, you can turn it on and off just right, like kind of wrapped around the shutter release button. So you're always, using your left hand to turn it on and off. That part of it, I wish it was over. So other than that, the button positioning of everything is pretty good. Another button I couldn't care for is this one custom button here. I have pretty big hands for someone of my stature, so some people did complain that it felt too big. But if you shoot DSLR, no big deal. And if you have big hands, no big deal. But I still find with my finger on the shutter and my hand like this, I can't reach that button unless I actually reposition my hand and press it. I know, buttons in the front, I find if you can't reach it without repositioning, you're going to forget that it's there. This is a touch screen like the Leica Q. So if you have, for instance, if you have the exposure compensation, you can use, okay, here we go, like that. You can adjust it with your finger. As well, if you have the AF lenses, you can pick your AF points. You can even set it to focus and actually take the picture, like the shutter. So that's a pretty cool feature. And in play mode, which I find less intuitive, you can use it to scroll through pictures as well as pinch out, look through everything that you shot. So I don't like touching the screen too much. So for me, that's kind of a iffy thing. Oh, another point I was going to mention is using manual focus lenses. One of the beauties, other than, as I mentioned before, with an M body, you had to focus with the optical viewfinder and then frame it with your other viewfinder on the hot shoe. Another problem with the M is when you start shooting with lenses with like 90 mil, 135 mil, and of course they're telling you can put R lenses on here with their special adapter, it's really hard to see in a optical viewfinder. It's very, very tiny. So this has a really cool feature where, as I mentioned here, you press that button and it's a zoom. So it zooms in. There's two zooms, so you go zoom in once and then zoom in twice. So one and then two, right? And I always thought, well, you know, you cannot set where these four, when you tap it once, the play, the info, the menu settings, and the zoom, you can't change those around. That's preset by Leica. I wish they'll let you even move those around. So Leica, in a firmware update, if you can move those around. And the reason I say that is because some of those features like zooming, as well as menu, you can still reach it with your thumb while you're shooting. And I wish the zoom wasn't so far away. So what I was doing was I was focusing and then zooming with my left. I had to actually use my left hand. And I didn't realize, and this is actually really smart, that this four-way controller actually acts, if you press it once, it actually acts as a zoom. So good thinking, whoever at Leica, that you just have to press that, zoom, you can quickly focus, and then you can either tap your shutter button or you can just re-tap this. And even zoomed in, you can actually zoom around inside your frame and focus. Now I think in my video at Leo's or other videos, I usually do the center point focus, meaning I just pick the one focus sensor in the middle. Usually it's the cross type, so it's the most sensitive. And then I point at something, I focus, and then I recompose. And that, in general, is how I still shoot that way on the street. But I started shooting with a tripod. So you see some of the pictures I shot along the beach with a tripod. When you shoot with a tripod and you framed everything perfect, and let's just say there's subjects walking into your frame, now using the joystick and actually being able to move quickly to where you want to focus, zoom in, get critical focus, and then zoom back out and take the picture, that's really important. So sorry for any of you tripod shooters that are thinking, Take is insane, what do you mean joystick choosing your focus isn't that important? You're right, it's very important. So other than being able to touch and focus with the AF lenses, even with manual focus, being able to zoom around within your frame, not zooming around, choosing your focus point, zooming in, focusing, and then zooming back out after you perfectly framed it on a tripod and then shooting, it's actually a quick way of shooting with this camera. Now, in terms of lenses, I've already mentioned it before that Leica really is calling this sort of like what Sony did with their A7 series, that many of the lenses, like I've seen so many A7s with Voigtlanders, with Canon lenses, with any other lens other than the Sonys, because it's full frame. And of course, most of the legacy lenses in the past that shot with film were all full frame or 35 mil not equivalent, 35 mil lenses, so you don't lose your actual angle of view and perspective. So with Leica, they're saying that this camera is compatible with 145 Leica lenses. And I think they mean 145 currently available, because there's lots of old Leicas, as well as other non-Leica M mount lenses that, for instance, the Minoltas, and as well you'll have some older screw mount that you can get the adapters for, so even old Contacts, Nikon, you can get tons of older lenses with. So they say 48 M lenses, 16 S lenses, which looks a lot like the SL, but it's their medium format camera, 51 R lenses, so that's when Leica got into SLR cameras back in the 70s, and they did some collaboration with Minolta on that. So that's 51 R lenses and 21 of their cine lenses. So I think it's called like the PL mount. So you can actually put cine lenses on here. And that's actually something I wanted to play around with. So hopefully I have someone in mind, someone local that does shoot videos with Leicas, and he's used the M240. Now this one has superior video capabilities like 4K, as well as going up to 120 frames per second in full 1080p. So that's why I'm saying this is a midpoint review. I'm going to do more reviews in the future with our lenses, shooting video and things like that. So that will be something I'm going to do in the future. Now, right now, there's only 3 lenses. Right now, one is only available, which is the 24-90 2.8 to f4 Vario-Elmarit. And what's coming up is the 90 to 280. Again, it's the f2.8 to f4. and then the 50mm f1.4 aspherical, which is a Summilux. And I think that's the lens that, if of all these new AF lenses that people are excited about, it's going to be that lens. The reason is because it is the first time there's going to be a, if you want to call it a true Leica, meaning it's a full frame made by Leica, that's going to be a true Summilux. So the Leica Q is a full frame, but it's a f1.7 when you're not in macro mode. In macro mode, it jumps down to f2.8, but this is a true Summilux at f1.4, and it's going to be 50mm, which is a classic focal length, and it's going to have autofocus. Now, because it's autofocus, most M shooters know that the filter mount on these are 46mm, so they're reasonably compact. They're very heavy because basically it's all metal and glass, but it's reasonably compact for what you're getting. Comparing this to any of the Canon 1.4s and the Nikon f1.4s, this is super tiny. But this is going to be a huge lens because it has to accommodate autofocus motor. It probably would have, I should have double checked, I think it should have image stabilization. And Leica tends to be very conservative with their lenses that are non-M in terms of size and aperture. So to make it 1.4 autofocus image stabilized, it's going to be a huge honking lens. But even still, it is a prime, and that seems to be kind of what Leica shooters gravitate towards. So I'm really looking forward to being able to test that. And I may have not have mentioned this before, but this Leica SL has no low-pass filter. So we already know how sharp Leica lenses are, and we know lenses are not just about sharpness, but they are very sharp. But as well, not having a low-pass filter, you're going to get even better detail. So what the detail I've been getting out of this Summilux is just mind-blowing. I also review for Fujifilm, and I've tested a lot of Fuji lenses, and Fuji lenses are spectacular. But when you put this lux on this full frame body and you take the pictures, it's not just sharpness and it's not just about light fall off, because at f1.4 you actually do get quite a bit of light fall off and vignetting, but that is kind of a classic Leica look. But just the rendering is very cinematic and amazing. So I want to do further testing with this, as well as some R lenses and some cine lenses. So look forward to that coming up. There was one major issue that was brought up, that I brought up in my first impressions video about the issue that I had was about the camera not knowing that you're stopping down. So as you stop down this lens, so I have it stopped down to f16. Now the aperture is super tiny, and now the screen is very dark. Now it is true, you can have it set, well, I don't think you can turn it off, but if you press the shutter down halfway, it will give you what the exposure, the actual proper exposure count is. Okay, so it is true that even if you stop down, so say you're at f4 and you're looking through and you press the shutter halfway down, you will get the actual exposure reading. But the problem is with the shutter halfway down, first of all, focus peaking doesn't work. Okay, so if you're trying to focus peak and you're trying to pick out the highlights, I would still say f1.4 is where you're going to actually be able to pick up the focus peaking. So you still have to open it up to f1.4 and then stop it back down to f4. And especially if you're in a studio and you're shooting, someone had asked me, you know, why would you shoot stop down? Because in a studio situation, you, especially when you're using telephoto lenses, you do want to stop down. Usually in a studio, probably anywhere between f4 to about f8 is where a lot of studio photographers will do, unless they're trying to do that really, really shallow depth of field. But other than that, you know, you stop it down, especially for the sake of using strobes. You'll get the true exposure stop down. I'm sorry, when you press the shutter button down part way, but again, you lose focus peaking. And in some extreme situations, like for instance in f16, I've tried this. At f16, I'm gonna go, so you press this back down button, you go to manual mode here. So now I can adjust the shutter speed. Adjust it right down to, you know, 24 seconds. and I look through and I press the shutter halfway down. Now, yes, it brightens up to compensate for what the exposure would look like, but guess what? Focus peaking is gone. The lag is insane, and it's not fun to frame. Now I go back to f1.4 and everything looks great. So I think that issue will still exist even when you use R lenses and other lenses where, because it's EVF, and this by default, it stops down, right? It stops down and the EVF has to gain up. You're gonna get a little bit of that. I mean, that's one of the minuses. Now for me as a street photographer, and most of my images are not in a studio and it's not in a dark environment, I'm shooting outdoors. And even if I was in a dark environment, you are correct, I would probably shoot as wide open as I can because I wanna get the fastest shutter speed. I won't really notice that, but for those of you that wanna use this as a studio camera, that's something that you'll have to figure out for yourself how you're gonna do a workaround for that. So that is pretty much it. Again, I will do more reviews. So far, I really enjoy shooting with this. I'm going back and forth between this and a couple of other Fuji cameras that I'm testing right now, and I've allowed other people to kind of play between the two cameras, and as soon as they grab this, it's not just the weight of it, but just the quality feel. The Fuji cameras definitely are not cheap quality, but as soon as you grab this, you know right away that there is a quality difference in feel. This is a solid block. They say it's 2 blocks of solid aluminum, so I don't know whether 2, maybe it's the top half and the bottom half, but it feels solid in the hand. Even if you grip it and try to press hard, there's no flex in anything. And of course, this is an external mounted GPS unit because it's all metal aluminum body that the GPS signal can't get through. But this feels like quality, and it will last a very long time. Really meant for professional use, and that's what you will get with any of the Canon, Nikon Pro bodies, is that really hefty, solid feel. So I've had a great time. I will continue reviewing this and come up with more reviews. Like if you like as well if you want to see more videos like this, and we'll talk to you soon. Happy shooting. Click, click.